Hey, Warren. Warren is number one today. Hi, guys. Edward, welcome aboard. Mama Forest Fire. I know who you are. Thanks for checking in. I'm pretty sure that a second degree black belt, are you third degree black belt? We'll be safe around machinists. John, my buddy, the knife maker, is here. GLG Knife Works. Check him out. Freelancer, welcome aboard. Happy Sunday morning. Hey, man. How are you? M. Najafi. I'll call you Mr. Najafi. It's a beautiful day in New Hampshire. Sun is shining. It's getting a little chilly. Oh, there's Chris. Welcome aboard. Good morning. I actually have the heat on in the shop, so you may hear it kick in. But it was chilly in here. It was 60 degrees, 60 degrees in the shop this morning, and I turned on the heat because I'm a wimp. Welcome aboard, everyone. Bowl of pork. Mr. Mazafari, welcome. No. John, that's somebody else, but I will call you M from now on. Manish, welcome aboard. So I have a few things on the agenda for today, so I actually prepared a little bit. It was sort of a quiet week in the shop. I was focusing on some family stuff, which I was happy to do. Got all caught up on orders, except, just when you think you're all caught up on orders, customers have a way of ordering things. So last night, or it might have been yesterday during the day, I got an order which made me very happy because this guy contacted me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I don't know if I can order from where I live. And no, it's not Rhode Island. And I said, well, let me do some research. So he gave me his address and information, and I checked it out, and I'm like, no problem. I think we're good. So I'm happy to announce that we're adding, I think, the 15th country to countries that have become customers for PFG Stones. And if I can get a drum roll, please. Thank you. That is the country of South Korea. So South Korea, one of our customers is going to be getting a set of PFG Stones, and I'm happy to ship those out this week. That was pretty cool. While we're talking about international, rat-a-tat. Oh, Warren, you're. I hate the lag. I heard your rat-a-tat all the way here from southern New Hampshire. So while we're on the subject of countries, Australia, last few orders going to Australia, we still had COVID problems, and the United States Postal Service had suspended flat rate priority mail service to Australia. Chris this is worthy. Chris says, I played bass for drum roll, please, back in 1984. Chris, you don't know how many times a day this goes on in my house, so, well, maybe you do. Anyway, so U.S. Postal Service suspended international flat rate priority mail to Australia and I just had my second order go out to Australia, where I voluntarily upped to express mail, doubling the shipping costs, which I absorbed. But we got our guys in Australia their PFG Stones, so I was very happy about that. But I checked on South Korea, and it looks like we're good to go. So South Korea will be getting their stones well, sometime very soon. I don't know how long it takes, but USPS. So that was a little administrative news. You guys could fight it out in the comments. We're all up to date on orders except for that one, and everything's fine. This whole thing we hear in the news about supply chain issues, I know it's affecting lots and lots of businesses. I haven't seen it yet specifically in the PFG Stone business, so that's been good. We're okay. We're okay there. So if you guys have questions today that you've thought up ahead of time, put it in the question button down below, and when we get to questions, we'll address that. In nothing terribly important news, you guys are no longer sitting on top of a can of denatured alcohol with a 3D printed iPhone stand. I'm now using the same mobile stand that I bought for my car, and it's much better. Plus I can keep it plugged in. Hey, Deka's here. Now the party can start. So let's see. So I have a little fun thing for you this morning. Wait till you guys get bifocals. It'll be fun. It's like this one or this one? This one? No, this one. This one? This one. So I was on eBay, as one does, and I saw a nice 4-inch Suburban Tool angle plate, a cast ground angle plate. Hey, Deka. And it looked great. So I made an offer, and my offer was accepted. And you know, off it came. And I kind of expected, as when I get little angle plates or blocks or stuff, I kind of figure if they're dinged up or something, I can grind them in, and then they become a useful shop tool. This one looked like it was never used, so I placed the order and it came in. Guys, I am stunned at the performance of this shipper. Unfortunately, I don't have the name right in front of me. I gave them an unbelievably positive review, because here it is. It's a Suburban 4-inch angle plate, and yes, it is. There's no sign that it was ever used, which is great, but that's not the point. This thing was wrapped in a McMaster car bag, so there's points there, right? Immediate points. It did have some anti-rust on it, which I've wiped off. That was inside of a small box with some packing peanuts. That box was then in another box surrounded by packing peanuts. And I think it was a 6x6 box and a 10-inch cube box. And this thing came in, you could have had anything in there, it would have survived. What a nice packing job. I never thought I'd say that about stuff I bought off eBay. Usually it comes in wrapped in tissue paper, like it was dragged behind a truck. So I was very happy. So the little thing I want to do today is take this new to me. Hey, Crummy, how are you? I want to take this new to me angle plate, and I have not touched these surfaces yet. And they look like they're right out of the factory. Like I said, there's no scratches and anything. And I want to stone them. I want to do this with you, me and you. We're going to stone this together, because I want to clear up some ideas about kind of process. But more importantly, I want to see what the PFG Stones tell us about these surfaces, which on any reasonable inspection look perfect, right? They look perfect. So we'll see what the PFG stones tell us about these perfect surfaces. By the way, I think the best surface I ever ground and then hit the PFG stones with, or hit with the PFG stones, was a cast plate, and it was a perfect grind. John says the only time I'll join in on getting stoned is with PFG stones. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Does that make me a stoner? I don't know. Not sure. Okay. So we're going to do that today. We're going to talk about beveled PFG stones, because that is something I talked about and I want to address, because progress is being made. And I promised that when the pressure got off a little bit, I would work on them, and I am. And then finally, I'll give you a report on my recent trip to Formlabs, which is a manufacturer of 3D resin printers, or resin 3D printers, or whatever you want to call them. And if you're not watching the chat, you're missing out on a lot. So yeah, let's get underway. So I'll take the questions as they pop in if it fits. So I'll take a question now, and we'll see if it fits in here. I don't know what it says. Oh yeah, let's cover this for a second here. Mr. Najafi says, what do you do with chip clogging on grinding wheels in aluminum grinding? So let's talk about aluminum grinding for a second. First, I'll tell you that I don't have a lot of time grinding aluminum, but I have played with it a little bit. First of all, when we talk about chip clogging, usually we say the words loading up. The wheel is loading up. And it's very common in soft metals. No, it doesn't happen there. But aluminum, it definitely happens. And you get the wheel loaded up, and then it's all over. One of the reasons this is a very good thing to talk about is that the magnetic chuck on the grinder, my grinder's doing a warm-up cycle here, by the way, that's why it's running. But the magnetic chuck is frequently includes aluminum in it. It might be aluminum and steel. It might be brass and steel. But frequently there is soft materials in a magnetic chuck. So grinding a chuck in is a particular situation where you are likely to get wheel loading if you're not really careful. So the first thing is use as open a wheel structure as possible. So if you use a very tight wheel, let me see if I can show you. Here's a really good candidate. This is a green wheel, silicon carbide, and it happens to be a 100 grit, but that is a very fine wheel, and there's the pores in the wheel are very small. Okay, so here's an example of another wheel. Now for this application, this is the wrong material, but this is a Radiac wheel. This happens to be what they call a ruby wheel. It's just another aluminum oxide wheel. You see the holes in the pores? This is a very open structure. So this is much less likely to load up. However, this is the wrong material for aluminum. So the openness of the wheel is real important for making aluminum work. The second thing is the right material. So silicon carbide is a really good material to choose for grinding aluminum. The problem with aluminum oxide, think about this. If you're grinding aluminum with aluminum oxide, what happens? So chemically, the aluminum wants to become aluminum oxide, and I'm not so sure things work out very well. I think it will lead to loading from a chemical point of view. But silicon carbide is a actually a harder material, and aluminum oxide, which is on top of the aluminum you're grinding, whether or not you know it, is harder than it, and it will make a chip, and it's more likely. So an open wheel, open structure, silicon carbide for aluminum. I hope that answers the question. And then you got to really ask yourself, why am I grinding aluminum? That's another very important question. So hope we did that one. Okay, so let's talk quick about this angle plate that I got that I'm very happy to have gotten. Basically, I got a brand new Suburban Tool angle plate for about 60% of the new price, and that made me happy. The first thing I noticed about this angle plate, which I didn't expect, and I guess I never really paid attention, it might be true on the other ones I have, is that the casting is not symmetrical. So if you look here, this surface and the top of the casting are basically parallel, but here it's not parallel, it's tapered. So you guys that do casting, you know why this is tapered. So this was probably cast like that. So in the sand, to get it out of the sand, there's a taper here, and that taper is called a draft angle. But there's no draft angle up here because it really doesn't need it. It's coming straight up. Also, we don't know what the shape of the casting was on this side. It might have also had a draft angle. So that was interesting. Totally interesting shape. You know what? Hey Ben, Ben Wood, put that in the question button, and we'll talk about that, because I think there might be others joining us today that have recommendations for books. So we'll talk about that later. All right, so we're going to hit this surface with PFG stones. Let's talk about how we're going to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper towel and my denatured alcohol, and I'm going to wipe it because I don't want any oils on that surface. Okay, so that's clean now. And now I'm going to take the PFG stones. Okay, and I'm just going to choose to use the so-called coarse side, which really means it has the bigger pores. It doesn't mean anything else. Once it becomes a PFG stone, the actual grit doesn't really mean the same thing. And I'm going to condition it. Okay, so now this guy's ready to do its job, and now I'm going to apply it to the surface. I'm using my ears and I'm using my fingers, and I can tell you that's a good grind. I'm not feeling anything in particular. So I'm going to give it a little bit longer than usual application because I want it to build up any shiny spots, and if there's any swarf coming off of it, I want those black spots to build up a little bit, so it makes it a little easier to see. All right. So let's see if we could read the tea leaves. Oh, I see some tea leaves to read. So initial impressions is that this is actually a very, very good grind, but that doesn't mean the PFG stones can't see stuff. So if you look along here, look along this surface, you'll see a bunch of marks. And those marks are the wheel. There you go. There's a good shot. That's the wheel coming onto the work, and then it kind of disappears. And if we look on the other side, we can see the same thing. This is the wheel coming onto the work. So immediately we can discern that when the wheel comes onto the work, it's riding up and then it's settling down as it grinds. So every time it hits the edge of the work, it's coming up and it's settling down to grind. That distance can be literally microns, like tiny, tiny fractions of a tenth. But it's there, and the PFG Stones picked it up. Now, oh, thanks, John. Yeah, I'm plugged in today. No batteries. So that's the first thing we see. Welcome aboard, Adam, neighbor. The second thing we see is there's something going on in here. See, the dark spots came up right here. I'm not going to attribute that to the grind. That looks like it was there. It's like a stain. And honestly, that's all I see. I do see, I see the step over, and I can tell you that the step over was about 100 thousandths. It might have been 80 thousandths step over. And then I'm looking at shiny spots, and it's pretty uniform. So this is pretty cool. This is the second time that I've seen a product from Suburban, a ground product from Suburban, where the grind was really good. So let's do the second side. Okay, once again, I'm going to clean it. I'm going to show it to you. Okay, let's take note. There's some more of that staining right there, which we saw on this side. I don't think that matters. And if we look real close, okay. So now let's hit it with the stone. Condition the stone. Hit the surface. Again, I'm using my ears, I'm using my fingers, and I'm not picking up any burrs or any bumps on the edges. That's pretty common. And let's see what we see. Okay. I'm seeing the same thing we saw on the other one where, let's see if I can get that turned just the right way. On the edges, we're seeing the same phenomenon of picking up a little bit of the grind on the beginning and on the end. If I worked it more, you'd see more of it. But honestly, it's a spectacular grind. So, you know, once again, PFG Stones tell the truth. Even though this is a great grind, we could still read the tea leaves, and we could still look into the microns and see what was going on. And it's pretty nice. So I have to say, I've had my bones to pick with Suburban Tool in the past about certain things, and then certain things I'm really impressed with. And I have to say, their grinding is excellent. So there you go, live and unrehearsed. So this becomes a tool in the shop, and we will take care of that. I might grind. The edges are they look saw cut. So these look like saw cut edges. I might take care of both of these sides and put a grind on them. But that's about all I'm going to do with that. So pretty cool. Some questions coming in. Let's put that in. I'm going to save your book question for later. This is a great question, Ben. Do you keep one side of each of the stones purely for cleaning, or alternate the stone faces? So let's put this to a vote, because I know a bunch of you are PFG users. What would you say the answer to that question is? Do you keep one side of each of the stones purely for cleaning, or alternate the stone faces? Now, if you read, I'll wait for your answers to come in. You can put them right in the chat. If you read my information page at pfg.gg, you'll find the answer to that. So I'm going to answer your question after I delay for a while. By the way, my machine has stopped its warm-up cycle. That takes about 29 minutes the way I have it programmed. So that guy is up to temperature and ready to grind. Good question, Ben. I'm going to take a sip of tea and answer your question. Warren says, no, I use each face as I see fit. All right. So I'll just say right up front, I agree with Warren. You should use all the faces all the time and randomize them. It doesn't matter. Use them all. And that's actually very good for any wear patterns that you might inflict on the stones. It evens them out. You know, a lot of making things flat, which I do a lot of making things flat. Hey, Randy Richards, welcome aboard. A lot of making things flat involves randomizing things, changing things up. You know, watch Tom Lipton, Ox Tools, do lapping. He has a couple of videos on lapping, more than a couple, and you'll see every direction, you know, everything on everything, change it up, and that randomizes the errors. So yeah, that's my answer to your question. Do not save a face for a thing. Mix them up. So these are the first 6-inch stones I ever made. The first stones I made were 4-inch stones, and they're in the drawer right here, still using them. And you could tell by the black dot right there that this is set number 1 of the 6-inch stones. And sometimes, not sometimes, if I have a recipe change in my grinding recipe for the stones, I will sometimes test them on here. Sometimes I'll test them on a new set of stones. I have some 4-inch stones that are getting thinner and thinner and thinner because I keep testing recipes with them. But excuse me, if you look at these stones, it's hard to see on camera. Not only do they have they're kind of dirty, right? They get used, but there's evidence of experimental grinds which could have been better, but are adequate. And there's even evidence of me scratching the hell out of it. I don't know if you can see that. With a carbide scribe, just to demonstrate to someone that it doesn't hurt the stone's ability to do its job if it gets scratched. So that's important. So just getting back to our the stoning of our angle block, you noticed a couple of things. Number one, I cleaned the surface I was about to stone. That's important, and that prevents the stone from loading up, and it prevents the stone from picking up the oily, greasy stuff. So that's the first thing we do. Second thing is we always condition the stone before we use it. Yeah, Warren, I want to talk about that, actually. I'm glad you brought it up. Always condition the stone before you use it. When you condition the stone, you know, one on top of the next one, again, your ears, your fingers, it's going to tell you if there's any dirt in there. And then apply it to the work. And if in doubt, if you think you might have gotten a speck of grit landed on your surface, stop, blow it off, wipe it off, and then go about your business. Don't be afraid to use your oil-soaked sensor pads to wipe the surface. Okay. So I'm glad we covered that. Okay, good question, Ben. So let's. Warren brings up something really good. He says, I also don't find much difference in the performance of the red side versus the gray side. You are not wrong. So from the standpoint of its behavior as a PFG stone, the red side and the brown side, is it brown? Okay. Once you're in the world of PFG stones, you're right. You could use either one most of the time. If you have a surface that is full of burrs and you know the stone's going to be cutting the burrs, the brown stone has bigger pores for the swarf to go into. Okay. And the orange is has smaller pores for the stuff to go into, and the result is that your brown side, the coarse side, will be easier to clean from the swarf than the orange side. The orange side is going to load up easier. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you are stoning very tiny things, you can make a case that the orange side is better, because for the same reason. But in general, they're the same. Randy Richards says, by the way, Randy, welcome aboard. Usually we put the questions in the little question button Dukas down there, but it's not crowded. Have you noticed any stoneware from normal use? If so, when would they need regrinding? Excellent question. So, like I said, I've got stones that I've been using for, how many years have I been doing this? 4 or 5 years. If you behave and you don't abuse the crap out of them, they keep going. So let me draw what I mean by that. If I'm using my my CAD system here, so if the stone looks like this, right? If we put it under a microscope, and of course all of these peaks are exactly level because we just ground it. That's kind of how it looks like initially. If you put gouges in it, okay, you scratch the hell out of it. Warren says if you're on a PC, there's no question button. Okay, well, don't worry about it. I'm not going to fire you. So if you gouge the stones, it's still got that flat surface. So eventually wear is going to start taking the shape of a like a swale, right? When you use it, your off the shelf stones and you sharpen your axe, you really start to see a big swale in the stone, but you don't care because it's an axe. So you got a long way to go if you're treating them properly before you have to worry about it. Certainly, if you stone a surface with PFG stones and it starts scratching an otherwise precision surface, you might have a problem. But honestly, if you're conditioning the stones against each other and you're generally taking care of them, I've never heard of that happening. So what I tell my customers, and I'm telling you, is if you buy a set of stones and a year down the road, if you think they need regrinding, send them in. I'll take care of you. Now, I will tell you that I have had 2 instances where I got stones sent in for what I call a spa treatment, okay? And the first instance was the very first set of stones that ever left the shop, and that went to Eddie Reese over at Saunders Machine Works and Spacely Guitars, and it was in the Saunders shop. And this is I'm not speaking ill of the Saunders shop, but it got used for deburring some edges, and by people that weren't briefed on how to use the stones, and they got gouged pretty bad. So we took pictures of them. They're somewhere on my Instagram feed. You have to go back a couple of years, and we reground those and sent them out, and they're still in use. The second time a set of stones came in for a legitimate spa treatment was recently, and one of my customers I said, send me a picture, because it was like really quick after he purchased them, and he sent me a picture, and I'm looking at the picture and I'm saying, that doesn't look bad at all. And then I realized he turned it, and it wasn't the brown side, it was the orange side that looked like that. And what had happened was, the guys using the stones were stoning basically greasy, oily surfaces, and it had picked up so much crud that I said send them in. So in the recent weeks, if you saw me doing the experiments with how to clean stones and different methods of cleaning stones, that's why I was doing it, because it was that set of stones that I was experimenting with. In the end, I gave it a full regrind. Well, just major faces regrind, and I sent it back to him. He's very happy. And one of the things he did that was really smart was before he sent them back, he ordered a second set of stones. So now he rotated them around, and that was totally fine, and I appreciated it, so I took care of them. That was the only time. And I've sold hundreds of stones, and if you take care of them, they'll last forever. But if you feel they're not performing, just let me know. We'll take care of you. Good question. Okay, lacking any other questions, I'm going to march on to another topic, but feel free to ask a question. If you do not have the question button down here, just put it in the chat. We'll catch you. It's not like it's a crowd. So, beveled stones. I've been... there's a dirty little secret that you guys don't know, which is I was approached by one of my customers literally years ago to make sort of knife edge bevel stones. What do you call them? Slip stones, basically slip stones. And they had a certain size and shape that they wanted. And it was pretty early on in my stone making career. And it was a real pain to hold these things and do it right. And eventually we let it die on the vine, but now it's coming up again. And the guys that want it are the are scraper hands that are scraping dovetails, and they want to get into the dovetail, and they can't do it if the stone is too thick. So I've had a few brain cycles that I've been able to put on this, and I think we're going to start doing the bevels. And I have here, I'm going to show you, we're going to spin the camera around. So what we're going to do, here we have a sign plate, a grinding vise, and you'll notice, here's a stone. So this is our prototype setup. This is set up for 45 degrees. Here's my 45 degree size reference. I made this a while ago. You'll notice that the ends are lapped, and this is 3.5355 inches, which will make a 45 degree angle on a 5-inch sign plate. So we've got to get in here and grind, which on the 4-inch is actually the hardest one because it's closest to here. But if you measure, you only need about an inch of wheel to get in here, and I think we're going to be able to do that. But what this also means is we're also going to be able to do other angles fairly easily. So I think I'm going to set it up so that the customers that want bevels, you could specify your angle within limits. So I know some of the guys were talking 30 degrees, and we're going to get there. But I'm going to do a 45 degree prototype, and I'll post that on Instagram. I'll show you how it came out. But I think that's going to work pretty good. The 6-inch stones are actually easier because they pop out more. The programming on the CNC grinder will prevent it from touching the vise. So it'll never go into the vise. Notice I said never. Did you hear that? Never. Okay. So that's the setup for the bevels, and we're going to get it going. Let's see if I could spin you back around here. So that's the plan for beveled stones. I might be on that today. I might do that prototype today. So keep an eye out for some updates. But I think it'll come out pretty nice. So I hope some of you guys are thinking bevels, and you can tell me what you want. I posted a question, and I really need to know what angles are important to you. I have one firm customer for an 8-inch set with a 45-degree angle. So as soon as I get some of my process details worked out, the first production set will be an 8-inch stone with a 45-degree angle. And I think was it Warren that wanted 4-inch stones, 45-degree angle? But there's a second one. I think it was Warren. So that's the story on bevels. You're up to date. You're as up to date as anybody. And there you go. If you have any questions about that stuff, put them in the thing or the thing. Okay, Warren, we're gonna have to, yeah, we'll talk. Warren has an advantage because he's, only about 45 minutes from me. So we'll have a chat. We'll get it done. 4-inch, 35 degrees or so, says Warren. It shall be done, but it won't be done until we talk. I don't know if you heard it, but the heat just came on. Okay, so that's bevels. Let's move on. I told you about that. Get a check mark there. So, question popped in with perfect timing, I might add. So Ben says, what size grinding vise would be best as a first vise for a home shop for general tool making? So it really depends on the size of your grinder. So I'm going to make some assumptions here, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm going to assume you've got a 6 by 12 inch grinder. I'm going to assume you have a manual grinder. You can tell me how I'm doing. What size grinding vise should you get? And the answer is a 2 or 3 inch grinding vise. So this guy here, hang on. Yeah, the one I just showed you with the 4-inch stone, that's a 3-inch. Okay, and then the one over here, it's also a 3-inch. So I could touch, sitting here, I could touch 2 3-inch vices. I think your first vise should be a 2-inch, and I have a number of those. I don't have any right here, but I think a 2-inch to start making small parts is appropriate. The 3-inch grinding vise starts getting heavy. Hey Robert, welcome aboard. So I think as you get your sea legs, start with a 2-inch. They're not expensive, okay? And you're not gonna believe this coming out of my mouth. I would start with an inexpensive import, or better, buy one off of eBay. Okay, so you just start using it, you start learning how to use it, and then the other thing you could do is you could grind it in. You could bring it into square, right? So that's going to tax your measurement skills. That's going to tax your setup skills, and you can dust it off, as it were. But even a cheap one, even a cheap import, is going to be as close as you need for the moment. So 2-inch or 3-inch. And I have a 4-inch I bought shop made off of eBay, and it weighs a ton, and I don't wish that on you. So I hope I answered your question. I hope that works, Ben. Excellent question. Okay, so any other questions? I'm going to tell you about my trip to Form Labs, which has nothing to do with grinding, in a minute. So if you have any grinding questions, let's stick them in there. I'm going to have a sip of tea. Okay, if I see any grinding questions pop in, I'll abort and take those questions. Yes. Okay. So Ben says, Sorry, it's not an emotional reaction. Ben says, you're correct. I'm spoiled at work for sizes, so I'm struggling to decide. Okay, so if you're grinding at work, you know what I mean about a 4-inch vise starting to get pretty heavy. Yeah, I'd buy a 2-inch. I have 4 2-inch vices, and 3 of them I modify. I ground on them. In fact, I'll tell you, they're Shars. I bought 3 Shars 2-inch precision grinding vices, and then I ground them in to match. And of course, I checked them. So I have 3 perfectly matched vices in 2-inch size, and that's why I think that's a great size for most of what you're going to do. Now, if you're going to do great big stuff, then I'm out to lunch. But on the other hand, if you're going to do great big stuff on a great big grinder, you're probably not asking the question you're asking. Okay, so I was at Form Labs on Friday afternoon. In fact, I was probably the last official act these guys had on Friday afternoon, and I got to see the Form Labs Form 3 printer, which is the one I'm thinking of. It's a resin printer, and I got to see the Form 3, the Form 3L, which is the big one, and I got to see some other printers. They also make some other types of printers, but I didn't care about non-resin printers. And I just want to give you some feedback on Form Labs. And I forgot to bring into the garage the samples I got. So I'm not going to run into the house to get them, but I'll tell you what I found. First of all, I was really impressed with the engineering on these units. I saw the Form 1 years ago when these guys first launched, and the results of the Form 1 were just absolutely impressive. And then I sort of lost touch with these guys because I didn't have a particular interest. So they had the Form 2 printer, and they were selling that for a while, and then they came out with the Form 3 printer. So the long and the short of it is, I had placed an order with Prusa for an SL1, and they had so thoroughly screwed things up and pissed me off that I am grateful to Prusa. I couldn't be more appreciative of the fact that they screwed my purchase of an SL1 up to the point where I would never buy one from them, because otherwise I would not have looked at the Form Labs, and it was a very good experience. So let me wrap up the Form Labs, Ben, and then I'm going to take Ben's questions because he has 2 good ones in the queue here. So I went down there and I looked at the Form 3, and I think I posted a picture of when I was in their demo room. If you look in the Instagram feed from Friday, and I had the hardware in my hands. I had my nose in the machine. I saw a printer farm that probably had 50 printers in it. And I will tell you, I haven't posted anything about this, but I will tell you one of the most surprising things I learned about that printer. Again, my intent was to buy a Prusa, and Prusa had this carbon filter and a fan and all sorts of mitigation for the smell and the fumes. And then I was talking to a buddy of mine who is a makerspace manager, president, big makerspace here in New Hampshire, and he was telling me about the right way to make a fume hood and how to exhaust it and all this kind of stuff. Okay, I walk into Form Labs and I walk into their printer farm, and like every other desk that I passed had a Form 3 on it. Customer service department, software development department, support department, all these seas of people working, and I walk into their printer room, 50 roughly. It might have been 30, but 30 to 50 printers, Form 3s on the shelves. Some of them were running, some of them were finished, some of them were sitting there idle. Do you know how bad that place smelled? Not at all. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but this thing here is not small, okay? And, I come from a long line of very sensitive noses. There was nothing. And this could not have been some scam on me because, again, I can smell pretty well. I smelled nothing. So I was so impressed, and I was so wondering if they were pulling the wool over my eyes. We walked out of the farm, and there was this office right adjacent to the farm that had windows and a workbench, and I saw a fan with louvers with exhausting air blowing out of the building. And I said, "Aha! You have an exhaust fan." And they looked at me and said, "Yeah, if you look at that room, you'll see there's like a dozen of the cleaning stations in that room that use isopropyl alcohol. And for that, they have an exhaust fan." So I was so taken aback. The more I thought about it, the more impressed I was that the resin and the resin printing process had absolutely no smell to it. I mean, I had plans for what I was going to do to deal with that. That was delightful. Their engineering and their laser optics was delightful. The different resins. They bought the resin company in Ohio, which is making the resins, and now they own it and they're making the resins. The resins were unbelievably impressive. They have an engineering resin called Rigid 10K, and it has 10 gigapascals of stiffness, and it's glass loaded. Unbelievable results, fantastic results. I won't dive into it. You can go research it. But I had the stuff in my hands. I had the results of it. I was super impressed. Now, my investment in a Formlabs printer would be double what it would have been in a Prusa printer. That's like saying, I'm going to buy a Volkswagen, and that's going to cost me more than double what a tricycle would cost me. Yes, it will. You get something for your money. So anyway, I'm heading down this path. It's a preparatory purchase, so there's no emergency here, but I just wanted to let you know that I was very impressed with Formlabs. Plus, I'm 45 minutes away. I drive down the road and I walk into their offices. Everything's in stock. Form 3s are in stock. Resin is in stock. I could place an order and be fully equipped in 3 days. So that's the end of my report on Formlabs. Prusa treated me like shit, and they can just go suck it. Formlabs, you've got a new fan. All right. Any other questions for the world here today? Questions, comments, rude remarks? Did anybody bring hot dogs? Anybody? I'm bummed that Adam didn't show up. We had Adam on live last week. That was fun. I'm going to have a sip of tea. Okay, so Ben Wood had asked about books, recommended books. With respect to grinding. That's a really good question. I don't have anything off the top of my head, and I do have a pile of books. Chris, you're on. Just give me a minute. I don't have a pile of books. I don't have a list of books to post, but I think that's a really good idea. I think what I'm going to do, and I'm going to take that under advisement, I will start compiling a book list and we'll just post it and get feedback. But I do have books. I don't have it ready. So next Sunday, Ben, next Sunday, I am going to have my top 3 recommendations for you. Okay? All right. We're going to try bringing, to close this session, we're going to bring Chris in here. So let me apologize in advance. See if this works. Here we go. This is the Pragmatic Machinist coming to us live. Welcome aboard, Chris.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and
Perfect.
clear, sir.
Look, there's only one reason that I wanted to do this. I just wanted to try it, but you requested. I delivered.
Awesome. Can I get a hot dog with pickle relish and yellow mustard, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's $14.99.
Please, I'll put that on PayPal to you right away.
Awesome.
How fast is FedEx?
FedEx? No, we don't do FedEx.
No FedEx.
No.
So I would guess that the distance between you and I is probably 700 miles.
Probably.
Yeah. I'm guessing that sucker's going to be cold no matter what we do.
Yes. Well, these are the garbage hot dogs that my kids eat, or one child eats, and I no. Made with chicken, pork added. No.
No.
I want one protein in my hot dogs, and no.
So we don't eat. Actually, we do eat a lot of hot dogs. We get the I don't remember the brand, but it's Angus beef, and that's it. And my son likes his hot dogs still, but that's a good one. Hebrew National's another good one.
The best ones are probably Kogel Viennas, but that's a Michigan thing. And once you have those, you probably won't eat any others. So,
well, I'll take it. I think we'll have to get some of those. And Tarsha Metalworks says California prices. I lost the flick. Hey, Tony Klauser is in here. Hey, Tony.
he came for the hot dogs.
He came for the hot dogs right at the last minute. Well, I wish we could all share some hot dogs. You know, it would. There he is. There's Tony. What a riot.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Take care, man. Thanks for checking in. All right. It's 12:58. We've got 2 minutes left before I turn into a pumpkin. We have this habit of doing these lives, and I end up starving by the end of the live, and my protein low light is on. So I will, at the end of this, I'll be heading into lunch. And I have no idea how to get rid of him. It seems to have worked. So did everybody have fun? Hope you learned something. I have homework for next week. In particular, the homework is book list and some show and tell on a bevel experiment, and we will get that done. Mr. Najafi, it's my pleasure. When they put me in the ground, I want my brain to be empty. So I'm going to figure out how to pass everything I know along, whether you like it or not. Okay, guys. So with that, I'm going to say have an awesome rest of your Sunday. I know Sundays is often family days for people, and sometimes it's hard to jump in at noon. But right now, that's the time slot we have. Ben says, did you think of any unusual shop tools to make? Well, you know, things like this, right? You know, this is like the most basic of basic, but that was a grinding project, and it's a measurement project, and it gives me a measurement tool. Most of my beginning grinding projects were improving other tools, and that's a lot of fun because you could buy junk on eBay and turn it into something useful. This vise right here was a project, a student project that I bought off of eBay, and I reground the whole thing and I heat treated the whole thing, all as an exercise, and it's been my #1 grinding vise. All right, guys, I don't want to keep us too long. So have an awesome Sunday. We'll see you next week. Stay safe in the shop. Make something that is useful and that you can use over and over again. We'll see you guys next week with a full report. We will sign off with a shot of our experiment getting ready to go. Happy Sunday.